In this episode of In the Loop, a recent scandal involving the fashion house Balenciaga and some kids holding stuffed animals in some interesting attire has put new focus on child labor laws. We'll hear from a former child star who's working with her peers to advocate for more protections for kids within the entertainment industry. Plus, you might have come across words like cap, woke, and slay on social media. While some people have attributed that language to Gen Zers, a lot of that lingo is derived from Black communities. Tonight we're going to take a look at African American English, where it comes from, and how it has seeped into the mainstream. This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. We've got a ton of news coming your way in the next hour, but first, specifically, we're focusing on how hockey is dealing with the fact that, at least historically, it has been a very white sport. I mean, have you seen the ice? Women and people of color have been rare in leadership roles in a sport that is both Canada's favorite pastime and a favorite in northern reaches of the US. It's even been a target for Saturday Night Live as recently as 2017. Check out this sketch featuring Chance the Rapper.
As they say in hockey, let's do that hockey.
Let's do that hockey. But more voices are pushing to change that. We're checking on how women and people of color have left their mark on hockey and are reshaping the game in the latest edition of our In the Loop series, Scoreboard. Out of 736 active roster spots in the National Hockey League, or NHL, roughly 20 are currently filled by Black players. That's less than 3%. Broadening it out a bit more, the overall diversity picture isn't much better. Official NHL data showed that all players of color only made up roughly 7% of the league's players. That lags far behind other major North American leagues. Players of color make up 38% of Major League Baseball and significant majorities of both the National Football League and National Basketball Association. It's not to say that hockey hasn't had Black stars, though. Goaltender Grant Fuhr and winger Jerome McGinley shot to fame in the 1980s and 2000s, respectively, and were later inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. But hockey analytics writer Chris Watkins told us that there's a bit of typecasting when it comes to Black players.
I interviewed a bunch of players, current and former players, scouts, executives, all of that said, hey, it seems like a very high proportion of Black players are asked to be defensemen, in particular, a much higher proportion than white players. And none of them are asked to be centers, which is by far the position that wins the most trophies, the most MVPs, the most finals, playoff MVPs in Conn Smythe.
And hockey has a history of racial discrimination that goes back decades. The NHL integrated later than the other three major North American sports leagues, waiting until Willie O'Ree made his debut for the Boston Bruins in 1958 to see its first Black player take the ice. Herb Carnegie, a Black Canadian who played in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, starred in lower level leagues but never got to play in the NHL. In an interview before his death, Carnegie told CBC Sports about a line he heard from former Toronto Maple Leafs owner Conn Smythe, who passed on signing him as a teenage prospect.
I was good enough for the Leafs. Because according to Conn Smythe, I would take Carnegie tomorrow for the Maple Leafs if someone can turn them white.
Fast forwarding to today, racism and sexism are still a thing in some corners of the hockey world. Like, there have been 3 big scandals in 2022 alone. Hockey Canada, the national governing body for the sport north of the border, has been the subject of a scandal after it emerged in May that they paid a settlement to a woman who accused 8 players of sexually assaulting her in 2018. The Boston Bruins caused a stir in October when they attempted to sign Mitchell Miller, a former top prospect whose draft selection by the Arizona Coyotes was rescinded, after it was revealed that he was convicted in juvenile court in 2016 of bullying and assault. Miller had targeted Isaiah Meyer Crothers, a Black student with developmental issues. For someone like Chanel Keenan, an intersectionality consultant who previously worked for the Seattle Kraken and grew up a Bruins fan, this was pretty heartbreaking. Her video reaction to the planned signing went viral, and she said she hopes more people can speak out when hockey decision makers make moves like this.
The growth that we need to have in this space is that people should not be afraid to speak up about these types of issues. I would say, not talking about things like this continues and perpetuates this culture of silence in the sport.
During the public outcry, Meyer Crothers released a statement detailing the nature of Miller's bullying. Miller had said publicly that the two were friends, but Meyer Crothers denied that was the case and said that Miller had mischaracterized the relationship with him after the incident. The Bruins ultimately rescinded the contract offer. And in November, Jagger Joshua, a collegiate player at Michigan State, came forward about a player on the opposing Ohio State team directing a racial slur at him on multiple occasions during a game. Ohio State responded by sending the player home from the team, but only after Joshua went public. Weeks after the incident, the player is still officially on the team. Many in the hockey community are working both on and off the ice to turn the sport into a more inclusive place. Herb Carnegie's family has started an effort to promote diversity in the game, and Carnegie was recognized for his work. The Hockey Hall of Fame inducted him in November as a builder of the game. There are consistently more players of color coming into the NHL now, and more prospects are coming up through the minor leagues to continue the trend. Women and people of color have also earned their way into more prominent spots off the ice. And women in particular have been way behind the curve in hockey inclusion. It took until 1990, 70 years after the first Men's Hockey World Championships, for women to have their first sanctioned World Championship event. No women were inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame until 2010, and the institution has capped the number of women who can be inducted each year to just 2 versus 4 for men. As of 2020, the rate of induction for eligible women was far lower than the rate for men. But things are changing there too. This offseason alone, 6 women were hired by teams as assistant general managers, a role that often leads to higher level work in front offices. Hockey data analyst Megan Chayka, co-founder of the analytics firm Stathletes, has seen at least some progress in the space already, and she thinks that having even a few women already in positions like that can go a long way.
Part of the coping aspect is to try to bring other women up or have networks that make sense to grow and change the environment of which we work in. I don't know if it's completely changed from when I first started out, but I definitely think that the public space allows for people that wouldn't necessarily get jobs to start working with hockey data.
And diversity in hockey has extended to the broadcast booth as well. Former players like Anson Carter and Kevin Weeks have made the jump to broadcasting, while the Seattle Kraken rolled out the first all-black TV broadcast team in league history last season when play-by-play man Everett Fitzhugh and former player turned analyst JT Brown worked a game together. But even as there are big steps forward, how does hockey continue to reckon with its historically toxic culture? Joining us now is Evan Moore. He's a former Chicago Sun-Times writer who is the co-author of the book Game Misconduct, Hockey's Toxic Culture and How to Fix It. Evan is also at DePaul University. Hey man, we really appreciate you joining us here on In the Loop.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, for sure. So first question here, what is it about hockey that has made it a very white, male-dominated sport historically? And how does that compare to other sports?
I mean, well, starting off, it's a couple things, it's location, it's proximity to being access and things of that nature. But what separates it from other sports is there's a punk rock mentality. We only want this with our only group of friends or our people, and we shun anyone who's outside of that, or who tries to enter the circle or enter that space. So we'll have you play, these issues that we've been talking about, racism, sexual assault, xenophobia, and all these other things. Yes, they happen in other sports, but hockey, it seems like it's more of it.
Based on the conversations you've had with people inside the world of hockey, how does discrimination take shape? What does it look like, and how does it vary depending on the identity of persons involved?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it's flat out someone saying that you're not white and saying things to you on the ice, or saying things in the stands, and they can manifest in other areas, even from positions. Like in hockey, the centerman position is akin to what we see in American sports with football, where it's the smartest player and the probably most gifted player defensively and offensively, and that's mostly goes to a white player. And in hockey, you don't see many centermen. And we all see what happens with most recently with Lamar Jackson. But when he was coming out, he was told that he could play wide receiver instead of playing, quarterback. And, that's all types of loaded when we hear how Black athletes, particularly quarterbacks, are described.
We also want to focus on some of the things that can help address these issues. What does the roadmap look like to fix this stuff? How does hockey become a more inclusive game for everyone?
Well, the fact that maybe about a month ago, the NHL, they released their first ever diversity report, and it said what was expected. And the fact that so many hockey fans or so-called hockey fans had something negative to say about it, and you saw what was said and everything else, and you have to bring on people that can help you get rid of these issues. I mean, there's plenty of folks out there. It's even though the NHL works with Black Girl Hockey Club and other organizations, but you also have the Hockey Diversity Alliance. There's also friction in terms of people of color or Black groups or Black hockey players or other folks who are they like to work with the league, and others are kind of like, well, we're giving these folks all this time to get everything together, so we're just gonna go off and do our own thing.
Evan Moore is the author of Game Misconduct, Hockey's Toxic Culture and How to Fix It, and he's a fellow Noob. Evan, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yo, appreciate you.
Yo. Okay, folks, up next, we're talking about an effort to reform one of the most prominent industries that uses child labor, Hollywood. That and more in just a few.
What if the news was different and covered more than one side of the story?
Justice wasn't served.
So you can make up your own mind.
I love you so much.
Introducing the new point of view, yours. Newsy. Watch free 24-hour news.